Yes, here we go. Show number fucking 20.
Yay!
Actually, I'll start that again because maybe it's fucking shouldn't be exactly the first word we say. Okay. Welcome to show number 20. Hello, and we have Mr. Eric Normand over in the US of A, I believe.
Hello, yes, in New Orleans.
From Trumpsvania. And we won't go there today. It's okay.
I guess I could pull a Brexit joke or something.
Yeah. So, Ray in Belgium. BJ, you're not in Holland, are you, actually?
No, I'm not in Holland. I'm in Germany. I'm in Munich for the rest of the week. I just landed today, so I'll be here for the rest of the week. So this is the first time, this is Defn, half of it is on the road.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome, yeah.
So I'm at a nice Airbnb with a lot of books. So it's going to be fun.
All right. So last week we started off with the weather. And
yes.
we could go there again because, you know, that's always a great subject. But I figured just to try a different tack, I thought I'd recount something that I did today that was just really interesting. Mm-hmm. That it turns out that I needed to move some compost from one composting from a compost box near my house to a composting site away from my house.
Okay.
And,
so we started from weather. Now
it was really an awesome job.
We thought the weather discussion was shit, and this is now literal shit. I mean, this is like proper.
It's literal shit. Yeah.
Awesome. I don't think we can go below than this in terms of boring crap.
Well, don't challenge yourselves too hard because you're gonna.
I think we have plenty of stuff. Like, we can talk about curling, we can talk about Scala, we can talk about a lot of things that can bore people out. But anyway.
Java classes and exactly type hierarchy.
So you're trying to tell me that composting is not interesting? Is that just to be clear?
Whatever works for you. I mean,
was it worm composting or some other kind of compost?
Yeah, just natural vegetable, and the kind of papers and stuff like that. Yeah,
okay.
Organic compost.
Organic. Yeah. Do you throw your coffee grinds in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the good stuff.
So you're getting into it.
Man, this is the best podcast ever.
You know, in Belgium, the communes give regular training courses on how to do composting.
Oh, nice.
This is what a great country this is.
Yeah.
How to avoid the rats coming into your compost?
Well, you never put meat in there or anything cooked. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, nothing cooked because the rats like their food cooked.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that on a film actually.
Was it a Belgian film?
Did they give you the videos and stuff?
It was called Ratatouille.
Oh.
Oh man.
Boom. All right. Okay. Let's move on.
Let's move to less boring stuff now.
This wasn't as funny second time around. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. So, open parenthesis, Eric. A warm welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Defn, episode number 20. Eric, please introduce yourself and then tell us what exciting things you've been working on so far in the past, in the future, and present.
So, I'm
That's
Eric
a shitload
Normand.
of stuff to do with. Eric Normand, yeah.
Yes, I live in New Orleans. I'm a functional programmer. My current language of choice right now is Clojure. And
can I just rewind a second, Eric? I know this is kind of like it's off topic, but what the hell? New Orleans, that was Hurricane Katrina.
That's correct. Yeah.
So just before we go into the whole Clojure functional programming stuff, I remember watching a program of like a TV series about New Orleans after the Katrina from the guys that did The Wire. I can't remember what it's called now.
Treme?
Treme, yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome series. One of the best series I've watched. What was your experience like of that situation?
Oh, of Katrina?
Yeah, and the recovery and everything.
Well, yeah, I'm actually kind of glad you brought it up because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about. People often are like, why is there even a city there? It's underwater, it's under the sea level. Well, it turns out that one of the main things that was, a cause. There are a lot of causes for what happened, but one of the things was that a wall broke, a retaining wall.
Yeah.
In one of the canals,
Mm-hmm.
and this canal was built to service, the river and the lake, and have some kind of way between them. But the wall hadn't been repaired, and there were some repairs that were supposed to go in, before Katrina was supposed to happen. And in the budget, it was vetoed, like a line item veto by W. Bush, right? George W. Bush, and he redirected the funds to the war.
Oh man!
So it was like something like they repaired it with some concrete or something. That's what they were going to do, is like pour new concrete, and it caused billions of dollars of damage because he didn't want to pay for some concrete. So
yeah.
And we're kind of pissed about that, and it's something that doesn't get talked about outside of New Orleans. That there's all these things that were just like so avoidable, right? And that canal was there to help ship goods to the rest of the country. And so it was kind of a sacrifice we made for the economic benefit of the rest of the country. And then we weren't supported when it needed a little bit of maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah. And so shocking pictures coming from the from the aftermath when people were in just a horrible situation. But how were you personally affected by it?
So I was actually not in town, just by chance. I was in the Peace Corps, and I was, in West Africa when it happened. I didn't know it was going to happen. I would have been home,
Of course.
But I just kind of missed it, and no reason to go back afterwards. So I just stayed in West Africa until my Peace Corps tour was over.
So did you move to New Orleans afterwards then?
No, I'm from here. I grew up here.
You're from here? Yeah. So your family was affected then?
That's right. My family had to leave, I think, for a few months. Then eventually they started opening up the neighborhoods one by one as they could, bring power and water back to them.
Yeah.
Luckily, their house was closer to the river, so it didn't flood. Because it's like a bowl. The closer you are to the river, the higher up you are.
Yeah, of course.
So they were closer to the river. Their house did not flood. And so they could move back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And there's still abandoned houses around.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. So but the nice thing about Tremé that I always remember was the music. It was really like the soul of the city was all about the music and the jazz and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So do you enjoy a bit of that in the evening while you're in between functional programming?
Yeah. What's really nice about New Orleans is you hear people like they're in a school band or something, and they're practicing their trumpet on the way home from school, and they're just walking back home and practicing, and it's a very musical city. Okay. It's everywhere. There's neighborhood bands and stuff. It's good.
All right, cool. So sorry, yeah. Let's get on with the. Let's
start with the programming stuff. So when did you start programming, and how did you get into programming?
Wow, programming. Well, I got to go back in time. I was a kid.
Okay, don't go about that far back. I'm not that interested.
Well, I was a kid, and I think I saw something on Mr. Wizard, if you know that show.
No idea.
It was like a science show for kids on a kids TV channel, and he talked about programming on there.
Okay.
And then it was in Logo, and somehow I knew that that's the kind of thing I wanted to do, like come up with some symbolic description of a different world,
Yeah. So maybe let me scope it down. When did you start getting paid for writing code?
Okay.
Yeah, when did it stop being fun?
Exactly.
I guess in college is when high school, end of high school, beginning of college, yeah.
Okay.
Started getting paid.
Okay.
I was doing, let's see, some C, web programming in C.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
That was like 98 or 99.
Yeah.
And then I did some Visual Basic. That was still a thing. Windows 95
Yeah.
rebooter.
Yeah.
That was my job.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a sad story, isn't
it? People don't know how good they have it now that, there's remote jobs like out of San Francisco that they can just get out
Well,
of,
I think doing VB and all of the things, it's like if you know Calvin and Hobbes, the comic, it builds character. Every time Calvin doesn't like something, his dad says it builds character. So of course, working with VB builds character.
Well, and you know what? VB was not that bad. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was way easier than the web stack.
Yeah, that's true.
In all those the languages you have to learn, like you just draw a button.
Yeah.
You just you literally would drag a rectangle out and it would turn into a button.
Yeah.
And you could just say, this is what happens when you click it.
Exactly.
And
so when did you get into functional programming?
There were still people programming in shit like PHP,
Well, that's I think PHP is a regression from VB.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's a bit like I said to my kids, that people think like poverty is over or illness is over, but actually, there's a shitload of it in the world today. It's just like
what's
we're
really
living in the future with closure, but there's still a lot of people suffering with PHP out there, so we have to feel sorry for them a little bit.
PHP. There was a book I read recently called "Refactoring to Collections." It is functional programming in PHP.
Cool.
Because apparently with PHP 7, there are enough. They've sped up the garbage collector and the function calls. Believe it or not, function calls have been pretty slow in PHP. So there's enough speed up in the function calls and the collections and the garbage collector that they can do. I think of it more like it's kind of like underscore style functional programming, where you can write your own map function and your own filter function and a for each instead of doing a for loop.
Yep.
And it was actually a pretty good book in terms of like, if you're a PHP programmer and you want to make your life easier, here's some stuff from the functional world that you can just take and make your own. I'm actually really happy to see that. I think that functional programming is going to have a big influence for us as a software industry to like get to the next level.
Yeah.
Didn't Facebook take PHP and make this hack language?
Yeah,
it was a bit more compiled and a bit more functional as well.
Right, they did. I'm not totally like 100% sure of the timeline, but I believe they tried to compile PHP.
Yeah.
And so they did as much statically as they could. That was their like strategy for making it faster. And then eventually they gave up on that and they decided to make just the VM faster.
Yeah.
And so it's still like dynamic and it's still, interpreted, but it's the VM is way fast. Better garbage collector, faster function calls, stuff like that.
But isn't it the old joke then? Like people say, "Oh yeah, PHP is a piece of crap. Yeah, it doesn't scale." But Facebook,
exactly,
biggest website in the entire world ever.
Exactly. Well,
bitches.
I mean,
so it's like, my god,
Like, I mean, if you really look at it as a an engineering decision, like a business decision, maybe is better the way to put it. It is really solid. It does what it says on the box. It scales in an interesting way because it has this like one request is one process model. You don't have to worry about concurrency. It's just one process. And so if you want to scale, you can just call your own HTTP endpoints back with, hit the local loopback network or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you're scaling out like that. It's basically like HTML with some code in it. So it's got that. And it's got this like nice you just hit refresh on your browser and you see the new thing when you change your code. And all those things are really good.
Yeah.
They're really
and
good
like VB, it's got a very slippery entrance, hasn't it? It's very easy.
Exactly.
Entry into the pool is quite straightforward.
Exactly.
Like
any HTML file is valid PHP.
Yeah. Well, as long as you put the tag on the top, I think. But so PHP is good. Let's. I think
screw Clojure. PHP.
I think
let's just talk about PHP from now on.
I think now we have crossed the boring to the next level now.
Okay.
Talking about PHP on a Clojure podcast. But so functional programming. When did you get into functional programming, and how?
It was in college. I wanted to write a game, and the thing about programming games that I always found annoying was that everything was in C and C++, and just the power you have there is very low. Like you're not really. I want to be thinking about like the monsters I'm creating. Instead, I'm like, well, how do I make sure I can free this memory when it's done?
Yeah.
And so I was reading up on like one idea I had was why don't I make my own language? And that would let me just say I want a monster, and then it'll run around and shoot people, right?
Yeah.
So I started looking at that, and I came across an interview with Richard Stallman, who said something like, Lisp is so easy, you can get it done, and you can make one in a weekend.
Yeah.
And so I took him up on that challenge because I thought if I make a Lisp in C, I could just call out to any C functions I want.
Yeah.
And so I made one. I made a little Lisp, and it actually was more fun than actually getting the game thing working. So I just kept working on it. I made a GC. I made a hash map implementation, and so I had a little Lisp interpreter.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a great education. I had never written a language before, and that was really cool.
Yeah, and also building Lisp is fairly less amount of work compared to building other languages because
you don't need a parser.
Exactly.
You don't need. It's just so simple.
Yeah,
it's so simple.
Yeah. So Lisp is your entry to the functional programming language.
That's right.
Functional programming. Okay. So what is your commercial experience? I mean, getting paid for this stuff.
Getting paid for functional programming. My first actual job in functional programming was in Haskell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. I was actually on your side of the pond over in Europe.
Yeah,
I was traveling around. I was tired of software. This was back in 2009. There just wasn't a lot here in New Orleans, and I was just tired of it, and so I was considering another option, and I also wanted to clear my head. So I was like, I'm going around the world.
Yeah,
sell all my stuff. My girlfriend came with me. We were in Europe, working at a hostel.
Okay,
and someone had a startup, and it turns out that he was the CTO had chosen Haskell.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm interested. But I have to be able to travel, He's like, oh yeah, no problem. So I installed Haskell on my laptop and started hacking on their code.
Yeah.
And Haskell's quite a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I was already into Clojure at that point, but I was not, getting paid to do it.
Yeah. And so from Clojure side, what is your experience so far with Clojure? I mean, you started with Clojure when Clojure started almost? And
yeah, it was in 2008 when I got into Clojure. So it was very early.
Yeah. Pretty much like the first version of it.
Yeah, I remember when 1.0 came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could keep up with the IRC.
Yeah, and see, I'm not a big chatter. I'm not a very super connected person. Wired. I'm not I don't know, texting people all the time like I see some people.
Yeah.
So I'll try to do IRC for a week, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot, and it'll be 2 months, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to turn on IRC today.
Yeah.
Or in the last 2 months. When was the last time I went?
Yeah.
And of course, people are trying to get in touch with me and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was 2008. I went to a conference on Lisp because it was the 50th anniversary of Lisp in 2008.
Okay.
If you count from the first paper that was published in 1958.
Yeah.
And so I went to this conference that was like celebrating the birthday of Lisp.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was quite boring. Like it was a lot of old people that were like celebrating their accomplishments that happened 30 years before, right? And except there was Rich Hickey, and he gave a talk. And there was a panel on the future of Lisp. So he presented Clojure at this thing, at this conference. And then the future of Lisp panel, he basically said something like, we need to start over. You can't go from Common Lisp and bring it into the future. Yeah. We just need to like make notes of all the lessons that we need to bring over, throw the code away, and start over. And I was skeptical, but someone in the audience said, hey, are you into Clojure? I was like, no, I haven't done it. He's like, you should try it. So I went home and I tried it.
Okay.
And haven't looked back. There you go.
Yeah.
So
what did you think about all these other guys doing? Because there was like definitely common Lisp was a thing, still is, but there was also Scheme and all those kind of things taking on. Then eventually became Racket. Yeah,
right.
So do you follow those kind of offshoots from
not really
the Lisp world as well?
I know that Common Lisp at the time was the biggest hope because it really it was a standard that had a lot of commercial support, at least in the 80s and 90s when it was. Yeah. And like Scheme is great, but it's came out of like an educational environment. So it's really stayed simple so that it's easy to teach. And you know, it's been one of its strong points is that it's great for teaching functional programming. But Common Lisp, I mean, just using it, you really felt like this is a professional environment. It has its warts, but it is a well-engineered thing. And so that was one of the reasons why I was skeptical, especially like, oh, JVM, like you're just taking on all this baggage. But you take on some baggage for a huge benefit. Like one person in the audience, this is back in 2008. I don't know what the state of the Common Lisp world is, but he was like, I've been trying to start a startup with Common Lisp. And every time I'm this close to making a sale to a big company for my software, they're like, oh, can you do SOAP? Yeah. And then, no, you can't do SOAP. And just being on the JVM, yeah, we can do SOAP. We can do it. And there you go.
Yeah, I think the ecosystem that makes Clojure way more valuable compared to the other ones.
Right, just being able to hook into money, basically. Yeah. Like businesses that are using this stuff, like whether it's a good technology or not, the fact that a company is using it and is willing to pay money, and maybe more if it's a bad technology. That's a big thing. It's huge.
Yeah. So did you do any Clojure commercial projects back then, or how did your professional Clojure evolve?
So after working at this Haskell startup, I was looking for something more local because they were based in Sweden. Yeah. And there was just a big time difference, and there was a pay difference too. Yeah. Like I was getting paid how Swedes get paid, and it's just different. Yeah. And so someone approached me with a startup here in New Orleans, and he wanted to do it in Clojure. Okay. And I said yes. And then eventually it happened, so I left my old job and went to that one.
Okay. And you're also producing a lot of screencasts and courses, right? So so Lispcast, and then of course the functional TV. So can you tell a bit about Lispcast and these things? I know, what are you trying to do there, and how is it going so far?
What am I trying to do? The big thing is, like, the big vision is I want something like 100,000 people to do functional programming. And like, I don't really, the language itself, I'm not that interested in, because I believe that functional programming will outlive any particular language. But of course, in the moment, you have to choose a language. It has to be practical.
Yeah.
And so I'm all in right now on Clojure.
Okay.
I'm teaching Clojure as a transition language. So you can go from a career in software engineering to a career in functional software engineering.
Okay.
And that's my main focus right now, is to help people who want to make the leap, but they've got a family and a lot of obligations. They don't have time to just dig in and learn it. They've got to keep their current job going, and they want to transition to functional programming. So that's where I'm focused right now.
But didn't you hear the other day that Clojure programmers are the best paid programmers in the world? So
yes, I did.
They should be
see
knocking
that.
your doors down.
I did see that. So I this was a Stack Overflow.
I really don't think it's the truth, but
So it's a Stack Overflow survey.
Yeah.
Right. So to know the source. They asked programmers all over the world what their salaries were and what technology they were using primarily. And Clojure came up to the top. In worldwide, I don't know what it was in the U.S. because most of their people are in the U.S.
I think it should be in the U.S. because most of the Clojure jobs are driven by the U.S. market anyway.
I think that's what it
less
is.
And less if you go to the east.
Right. So like the U.S. is dominating that segment.
Yeah,
there.
it's pretty much skewed. So what are you working on these days? So is the Lispcast and everything your full-time stuff?
Yep, I'm working on it full time, making videos and courses. It's growing.
Yeah,
that's as good as I can hope for right now.
Yeah.
It is not quite where I want it to be. But plan B is just I get a job in Clojure. There are plenty of jobs,
of course.
I'm seeing how far I can take it.
Okay. So what are your plans for this one then, for Lispcast and these ones? Do you want to keep touching upon different topics or?
Yeah, my plan is to have a complete suite of Clojure courses like that a beginner could just jump in and go and then have enough for them once they get a job. They still want to learn more, so they're still subscribed.
Yeah.
And I should say that it's a subscription offering. You can buy the courses individually. At least some of them. I'm trying to get them all on there. Yeah. Because apparently some companies don't like subscriptions, so they'd rather pay for a one-off thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the question, I think it's an interesting business, but what are the kind of things that you're trying to suggest to the world that functional programming is? Why is it a superior approach to, let's say, either procedural programming or object-oriented programming? Where you see, where's the battle? Let's say, where is the hearts and minds that where they currently are, and how do you? This is a very long question, rambling. So I'll ask you one question first. What do you think the major selling points or the major kind of pain points are that people should be hearing and feeling that motivates them to move to a functional programming model?
That is a really hard question. It's a good question, and maybe we could hash this out because I have trouble.
Screw
with
it!
We've
got time. We're only half an hour in. We've got plenty of time. If we can't nail this, where else are we going to find out the answers to these things?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm up for it.
So the place where I start now, because I've tried.
I think we all thought about this, by the way. I mean, I guess this is all new, isn't it? Yeah, let's make it up.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to sell.
Eric,
I don't want to sell something that doesn't make sense. I went through the object-oriented hype cycle back in the 90s. I also went through the XML hype cycle in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to sell anything like that. I do think that there's something to the new multi-core world that we're living in, where we have to think about concurrency up front and stuff like how hard it is in Java to do concurrency. even though it's easier than it was compared to Clojure. It's Clojure is like a README, whereas in Java it is this thick book with all these things to keep in mind. Basically, like, oh, you already did it wrong. What are you going to do now? There's no path.
Just before you go there, though, I mean, people. I've heard that argument about like the parallel programming, but if I talk to executives at company, I'm finding it hard to discover where the give a fuck button is,
right? Because
they're just not it's not there.
No, right. And
I'm pushing every trying to button, but
you have the same.
Who cares?
You have the same problem in every language, every paradigm. Like Wikipedia, Flickr, Facebook, they're all written in PHP, and they're huge. Like, why? Is this scaling problem really an issue, right? Another thing that I try to sell is that it's more power, meaning in each person's hands, you have you can have a small team do Flickr, for instance, as opposed to the however many thousands of people working in the PHP coal mines there are at it's more like what's his name?
So every problem is kind of tractable, let's say.
Right.
Every problem is eventually tractable. It's just a question of how much power your tools will give you to kind of work through that problem at a good speed.
Exactly. I just came back from Clojure West. Great conference, by the way. We can talk about it in a little bit. Yeah. But I was talking to the people who work at Walmart who do Clojure. Yeah. There's a 9-person team, and they have several products now. I didn't know that, but one of their main products is something that processes all the receipts from every Walmart store around the world.
Okay.
So that's a big, complicated, important system that is 9 people.
Wow.
And so it's that kind of leverage that you would just never imagine doing that in Java.
Yeah.
Like in Java, this is like
teams and teams
hundreds
of people. Yeah.
Yes, it's teams of teams. It's like you have the battalion, and then you have the unit and the brigade. I don't even know how you divide things up in the army, but to be able to say a small team can build and manage it, and add features and fix bugs and stuff on their own, like that's a huge win for business.
Do you think though that it's in the end you have to sell it to programmers first and businesses second? Or do you think you really, because I like I say, I think businesses find it hard to really understand what the difference is between language A and language B. You can tell them till you're blue in the face, but they're unless they already kind of come from a pretty technical background, I think businesses just don't understand.
I think it's really hard. I mean, that's why I was trying to avoid the hype cycle. Back in the 90s, I remember the big thing about object-oriented programming was it was supposed to have so much reuse that maybe you pay some upfront costs, but then after a while there's like you're just reusing stuff that already exists. And that just hasn't turned out to be the case with most languages. The reuse happens now in libraries, but those are relatively expensive to develop, and they take a lot of time, just like calendar time.
But don't you think there's also an issue with libraries as well? Is that there's a lot of magic sometimes because they're not libraries, they're frameworks.
Sure.
Yeah. A lot of the object-oriented ones, especially, like even the big data ones that you're getting these days, they're still infested with this state and this kind of magic box that you have to comply with.
Sure. And you get a lot of benefit, but not what they said. Like you still have to read a book on like Joda time, for instance. Because you have to do time for real, you have to become an expert at the calendar. Like all the crazy stuff in there. Like that some days don't have a midnight and things like, or some days have 2 midnights.
Yeah. That's true.
So don't check if it's midnight, check if it's equal to the first second of the day and crazy stuff like that. So, go ahead.
So you also have this newsletter, right? That you send out about Clojure or functional programming.
I do.
Yeah.
I started that back in 2011, I think.
Wow.
No, 2012 must have been 2012.
Almost 5 years.
5 years then. Yeah. It used to be called the Clojure Gazette.
Yeah.
And is evolved over time, but right now it's 10 links to stuff I've been reading that week.
Cool.
And I curate it, and I try to tie it into bigger trends. I don't like. I've never said it's news.
Yeah.
Right. I call it a newsletter, but it's not like this is the 10 top most important things that happened this week. It's more. I like the long-term view. Like, this is important in a long trajectory of stuff.
Yeah.
I can see where it falls in, and it's made to inspire Clojure programmers, so it's not all Clojure.
Yeah.
And I like to put a little commentary in there about how it fits in.
Okay, cool. Of course, I mean, I subscribe to your newsletter, obviously. And
yeah.
And I remember I also saw plenty of your videos because I participated in the Clojure Cup, and I got.
Oh, cool! Right.
Yeah. So
and you won.
Yeah, I was second or something, and I got access to all of your videos. So I downloaded everything and I watched them. So that was pretty cool, actually.
See. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't pay for it, but I won. So.
No. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I sponsored it.
Yeah.
So all the winners got like a year's subscription or something.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. So I learned a lot from those videos. So before we transition into the other thing, you are at Clojure West, so we'll talk about Clojure West. So the biggest question that probably everybody using Clojure is asking: Emacs or some other shit?
I think the answer is very clear. Emacs.
Yes, obviously.
Emacs.
Okay, that's settled. Let's move on to Clojure West now.
and enough said, right?
Exactly.
Emacs.
Yeah. See, this is one of the reasons why your like the functional programming shit is struggling to get adopted. Everyone's saying, you got to use this old crappy text-based editor.
Nobody's saying use this
black and white screen. You got to, because that's the really way you have to make it work.
At Clojure West, someone had a really good point, which was that it works for Vim too. But that if he can work remotely on anybody's machine, because all he has to do is SSH into some server, and he can load up Emacs.
Yeah.
And then you can also tmux and do all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I use Emacs, the GUI. But if I'm ever in a terminal and I need to pull up an editor,
then
I'm glad I have Emacs and I know all the key bindings.
Yeah.
But Emacs is not on most machines, is it? It's not on most servers for a fact.
Technically,
but neither is Vim.
VI.
Most servers have VI, the original.
Yeah, but why do you even need to get a shell into the server? I mean, because you just use Tramp and then just connect to the remote.
Tramp is not very good on Mac.
Oh,
Mac.
Okay, yeah.
And it's slow enough where it's
loading the remote files and
Yeah, you hit save and then
you just need to wait for it. Yeah.
I've heard it's much better on other systems.
Yeah, on Linux it's pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get back to now that the serious question is answered.
I know that was a joke, right? But I'm really glad that there are a lot of good editors now.
Yeah.
There's Adam. I've heard a lot of good things.
The funny thing is, I was at a company doing some Clojure last week, and there's I don't know 8 people there doing Clojure, and I was using Cursive. One guy was using Emacs, another guy was using VI or Vim, and 2 of the guys were using Sublime Text.
Yeah.
So it's just like, no one gives a shit anymore.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
You can use any text editor.
That's really nice.
And people will, develop their own tastes. And that is really awesome, actually.
I think the nicest part is the REPL integration, right? As long as your editor has some decent REPL integration, you're done. I mean, that's pretty much what your tool chain needs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, I really sympathize with people who are trying to learn Emacs. I have the same issue with Cursive. I open it up and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to click. People are like, just open the browser. Yeah. And I click on something. They're like, no, that's the navigator. Never open the navigator. That's not the browser. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And it takes 20 minutes to get back to where I was.
I did try using some other editors. I mean, every now and then, obviously, and I use even weirder shit. Like I use Spacemax with VI key bindings, but in Emacs. And
okay.
when I'm editing, it's Emacs key bindings. When I'm going through the stuff, when I'm moving around, it's VI evil mode. And I was like, okay, everybody's saying Sublime Text is the shit, so I should be using it. So I started using it not using it, but trying it out for a couple of weeks, and you have these things burnt into your fingers forever, and then that's very difficult to get rid of. So I'm gonna give it a try again, and then see what to learn and what am I missing. So, but anyway, so editors are.
But I think you're right, Eric. I mean, I think the main thing is that you shouldn't be worried about the tooling. Yeah. As long as the tooling is good, like you say, VJ, you've got a good REPL integration, and you can do your editing in your own styling. Then let's discuss the actual problems and the languages that you're using, not these other tools.
Exactly, for sure. And also, you're interested in building software, not interested in always thinking about the editor. Once that phase is gone, you're focused on your code, and then you're just trying to build stuff, not really worried about the editor. So.
Maybe Eric has lived the dream there because you've written your own programming language. So then the obvious thing is to write your own editor.
Right. I could
Stallman way.
Emacs in my own Lisp. Right. Oh.
Yeah. But did you do that?
No, I did not get that far.
But there is still an effort, right, to do the Emacs in Clojure. I don't know how far it is now. Maybe it was there. Anyway, let's not digress that much. So Clojure West. So how was it? Give us some impression firsthand.
Great. Mm-hmm. It was great. I just got back yesterday, and I think I saw 1.5 talks. And I gave a talk, so I was there too.
Okay.
But I'm more of a hallway track guy. Like the talks come out so fast. I actually also enjoy the talks more when I watch them on YouTube. I can watch them like. I don't know. It's kind of like TiVo versus watching live TV,
Yeah.
It's like I watch it on my own time. Yeah. So yeah. But talking to people, I mean, Clojure is growing. There were so many sponsors, like companies that basically are hiring. They had a table there at the conference. They're all looking to grow. Looking to just like meet everybody in the Clojure community.
Yeah,
it's great. I think I really am going to see some good growth in the next few years because of
I think we're looking forward to hockey puck growth, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, hockey puck growth,
like
all the way back around, like circular growth.
What is it?
Well, we're going to where the puck is, where the puck is moving.
Wait, is it hockey puck or hockey stick? I thought it was hockey stick.
That was the joke from Karen last week.
Yeah.
That was so. Come on,
hockey puck growth. It's round.
It's fast.
It's fast and it's round.
It's going really fast. You hit that hockey puck and that guy goes.
Exactly. Okay,
I like that better than hockey stick.
It's on a frictionless surface. It just doesn't
exactly.
stop.
I mean, once it gets momentum, there's no stopping this shit. Yeah. I love it. So I'm preferring hockey puck growth all the way.
By the way, speaking of conferences, I mean, I don't know. I was talking about this on previous episode as well. That we ran Dutch Clojure Day here on March 25th.
Yeah,
it was phenomenal. It was really nice. We really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. And talks were really nice. Venue was great. And there were plenty of people, full house, a lot of discussions. I think.
Were the talks recorded?
Yeah, they were recorded. So we'll be putting them online pretty soon, as soon as we finish.
Big names as well.
Yeah.
Big names. James Reeves.
Yeah, James Reeves.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we got, I think mostly the European speakers. And of course, we got one speaker all the way from the US as well. Will from Mojo Tech, I think, and it was a very, very nice atmosphere.
I'm jealous because there are more Clojure conferences in Europe than in the US.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The US just has two.
Yeah, London, Berlin.
Yeah.
Y'all have
Sweden,
a lot. You have
Norway,
so in the US you Finland. Have Conch and West.
That's right.
Okay.
And they're both Cognitect.
Yeah.
And there is an open an open invitation by the top of Cognitect, guys at the top, who they say, please do more conferences. So,
okay. Maybe we should take
a monopoly on them.
Maybe we should take Clojure Days to US. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But the thing with Clojure Days is that we were insisting on making it free and keeping it free and completely community driven. So it was a challenge last year. I think we were like negative €60 or €10 or something.
Who had to shell that out?
One of us. And this year it was slightly better. It was not slightly better, pretty green. And we are also thinking of writing out how we organized it and publishing everything, including the finances and everything. What did we do with what and how it went. So if other people want to organize this kind of conferences, that'll be a bit more helpful for the other guys as well, other folks.
That'd be great.
So that is one of the things that we are thinking of.
Well, you said, Vijay, that the sponsorship, or was it Carlo said that the sponsorship was much easier this time around?
This time people basically came to us.
Eric said,
people came to us selling. They sent us emails saying, "Hey, Vijay or whatever, we want to sponsor Clojure Days. Last year we were there as attendees. We really like it. We want to sponsor it." And there were other companies as well. And the couple of companies we had this year, before they left, they told me, next time we want to sponsor. So keep us in your mind. Like that was really, really nice. So it's really like a community thing. We want to help other people to come here and learn about Clojure. But anyway, we'll publish a blog post about those details and other things. Speaking of conferences, first I want to ask you, how did your talk go? And you were talking about Test Check, right? At the conference.
That's right.
So
Test Check. It went well.
Okay.
I of course felt like I missed so many important points.
Yeah, it's always with the.
Yeah, one of the things, if I
did you not write it down beforehand, Eric? Was that not one of the things?
Well, I'm not reading it. I do try to. No, the thing I wanted to complain a little about is my own problem is every time I rehearsed it, I was a little over. So I basically stopped making slides and just revised the slides I had at that point. I was like, and then I prepared a little apology for not getting more. And then I did the apology in the talk live. It was like at the end. And then I looked down at the clock and there were like 6 minutes left. And I was like, oh no, how did that happen? So I think I have to, this is my second real talk. So I have to get better at that. To get better at that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
how does the test check thing? Because that's interesting these days with spec, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because obviously that's
tightly integrated.
That whole thing is becoming very front and center of the selling story. Let's say about Clojure. And I guess test check is Erlang, Haskell, and all these other functional programming languages as well. So it's a general kind of meme, let's say, in the functional programming world. What do you think the reception is for that kind of testing in the outside world? Because, I still feel like people are very much driven into unit testing and that they're still in that mode.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reception there for this kind of stuff?
There's a reception. The biggest thing, and one of the reasons I did this talk, was people don't know where to start.
Right.
There's just a lot of, there's a lot of false starts, let's put it that way. People try it and they're like, I don't know what properties to do. And that was kind of what I was trying to get at in my talk, that the properties that you want to do they can be the same properties as you do with your unit tests, with your example-based tests, but you can generate random data. But then you can start taking it further and further and testing the whole system and getting like a cohesive view of your whole system and testing it that way.
And you also talked about concurrent system testing, right? It's not just about testing using test check. So what is the? Of course, I will watch the talk online. Yeah. But I'm curious about what is the fundamental difference, or what are the challenges testing the concurrent systems using test check?
So you can test something sequentially by reifying the operations. So you generate operations and run them on your system that you're testing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can also you also run it on a model that has the properties that you're interested in, and then you compare them at the end.
Mm.
So to make it concurrent, you can just run those operations in different threads. So you make 2 threads worth of operations, and run those in different threads, and so the challenges are things like making sure all the threads start at the same time and waiting for them all to finish. Stuff like if you're trying to suss out race conditions, because that's concurrent problem, right? So what you want to do is run it multiple times, run the same test multiple times to try to find that race condition in there, and make it more repeatable. Those are the main things. Those are the main.
Because I remember watching a talk from one of the the quick check creators about especially the difficulties in testing the concurrent systems with this kind of methodology. Was it
with timing and
stuff?
Yeah,
with timing, and of course, and it's very difficult to predict. So
timing does get into it. So I think you're talking about John Hughes.
Yeah, John Hughes talk. Yeah,
he gives a lot of he invented generative testing.
Exactly,
and now he calls it property-based testing, but it's he gives a lot of talks about how to actually do it. And one of the things that he tested was a chat server. And it was in Erlang. And so you have this thing where you have someone logs out, and the message that they have logged out takes time to get to the server that records that he's actually logged out. And so there's a time between when the user logged out and when it's actually registered that he's logged out, that he's actually not logged out in any real sense. And so if you were writing a test, it's like, okay, log the user out and then check, did he get this? And send him a message and check if he got it. Like, it could happen faster than that message got that he was logged out. So you have to actually model that in your model. Like all of that knowledge that things take time has to go into your model. And the way he did it was he made up different predicates than just logged in or logged out, right? He made up stuff like could be logged out, meaning we sent the logged out message, but we don't know if it's gotten there yet. And that period is like kind of empirically determined to be 100 milliseconds. There is a time after you send the message where he might not actually be logged out yet. So it's actually doable pretty simply.
Okay, cool stuff. I think, of course, I'll take a look at I will watch the talk, and I'll learn a couple of things, because I've never done.
I wish I could get into more of that stuff. That was the stuff I had to apologize for. That I couldn't get into.
But are you planning to make an episode about it on your course or something?
I do want to make a course.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
especially now that it has spec integration. I've held off on making a spec course because I've been burned in the past with alpha software.
Right.
And like you spend all this time on the course and then
and then changes and then
on you. And,
that's true.
It's alpha 14 now.
19,
so,
I think.
It's
Yeah.
14, I think.
I mean,
19 even,
wow,
yeah.
okay. But it's very high number of alphas, so definitely the things are evolving. Yeah.
Right. And there's still, the API is still considered alpha. It's not like they're just fixing bugs in that alpha. They're actually changing stuff. So.
Yeah.
We spoke to Alex, September or something last year?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they said that it would be out like this year, but I mean, now we're in March, April now, in fact.
Still this year, so.
Yeah.
December 31.
Yeah, but
exactly.
It's really, this is taking a long time to settle down, isn't it?
Yeah.
This one.
For sure.
I guess I think they're of the opinion that they won't get a second chance to do it, so better take a bit more time to cook it properly.
Right. It's true. And they want it to be part of Clojure itself.
Yeah.
It might. Yeah, that's enough talking about that.
Yeah. So staying on the Clojure thing. So apart from writing Clojure code and being involved in Clojure for a long time, you saw how the language is evolving and everything. and you're very familiar with all the features of Clojure, because not only you're working on it, but you're also teaching. That means you have a higher level of understanding. So what are your favorite, maybe one or two favorite features of Clojure? Because you already did Common Lisp a lot and or Lisp World. So what would be the interesting thing?
Is this the new favorite features section?
The favorite features.
Yes.
There
is a new section in this podcast now.
Favorite features of Clojure section. Okay.
Favorite features. Well, I really like the literal data structures, and I like that they're immutable.
Yeah.
I guess that's one feature. Common Lisp just had one literal data structure, which was the list.
Yeah.
And you had to quote it if you wanted to use it.
Yeah.
Which meant unquoting stuff inside. It's like not the best experience.
Okay.
But because you have vectors that everything inside gets evaluated, you can actually do that much more easily. And the fact that they're immutable, like, just makes you divide up your problem better. Makes you think about how, or I guess you don't even have to think about how it's going to be used in other threads.
Yeah.
In worrying about who should be able to see this. Do I have to make a copy and things like that?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So just before the show, we were talking, and then you said there is some interesting things that you're working on, and you said you're gonna announce it now, or at least pre-announce it, or
right. Okay, I'll pre-announce it. So I'm at Clojure West. I used a lot of the talking to people, the conversations, to figure out whether there was enough interest in a Clojure conference in New Orleans.
Sweet. Okay.
And like when it should be, and what it should be about, and how it should be structured.
So it's going to be called Clojure Jazz or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would do something. Something
Clojure
else.
Trad.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. I haven't come up with a name yet.
Okay.
But I like the hallway track, and a lot of people I talk to say that it's their favorite part.
Okay.
And that's why they go. And so I just want to kind of cut out the pretense of like having the talks at all.
Oh.
And just do hallway track. This is actually, this conversational format might be the best way to explain this.
Yeah.
There's a system of conference organization called Open Space Technologies. And it basically, you set a theme for the conference. At the beginning of the conference, the first thing you do is you all sit in a circle facing in, and someone opens the space, meaning they say, who has an issue they want to talk about?
Yeah.
You write it on a piece of paper, you stand up, you say it to the group, and then you go like put it on a board so it doesn't get lost. And then after everyone's aired all of their issues, then you divide up, or you group up and start addressing those issues. And I feel like it solves a lot of the problems with the hallway track. I mean, I could see a lot of people who are just shy, who are just like, I wish I were talking to someone. I really like it, but I'm too afraid to introduce myself, or I'm maybe tired, or I just don't have that in me anymore. And I bet there's people who are sitting in the talks who really wish they weren't distracted by the talk and wanted to go talk to people. I also saw, I mean, this is sad, but some of the sponsors who paid thousands of dollars to sponsor, they were just sitting behind the table waiting for someone to come up to them. And why aren't they talking to people? Like, there are people in the room. Just go walk up to them. And so I kind of want to remove all of that. Just say, look, there's stuff to talk about. You heard what that person said they want to talk about. You know where they are. They're in that corner talking about it. You don't have to say anything. Just go sit in that group and participate.
Cool. I don't know if it is still running, because I remember, I think in 2000s or something, somewhere when I was still in India, there was this bar camps going on. Bar camps were pretty much like that. You go there. There is a board, and then you just propose what you're going to talk about, or the issue on a sticky, and then just put it there, and then people will vote on it, and then whoever gets like at least 3 or 4 votes, they get a room, and then they talk about it. So bar camp was one of those things. I was part of at least 2 or 3 back in Bangalore in India a long time ago. So it sounds like a similar idea.
It's very similar.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
The difference, I've been to a couple of bar camps, and I'm sure they're all different because of just their nature. But the ones I've been to, people prepare slides and stuff beforehand, and they arrive early so that they can get on the board at the spot that they want. That is like not what I want.
Exactly.
I don't want it to be like talks that no one curated.
Yeah.
Like that's like the opposite of what I want. I want something where, so the theme of the conference is going to be closure at work.
Okay.
And the idea is to bring in the employers, the employees, and people who want to work in closure and have them actually talk about the issues they're having.
Yeah.
Like it might be tooling, it might be hiring, it might be finding a job, it might be training, and have them, say, we've tried to hire someone and we don't know where to look. We don't know. We've hired someone before and they were a bad fit. They didn't actually know closure. And just bring up these issues, and have the employers talk to each other. Have them come up with something more than just talking. Where like halfway through the first hour, they're like, "We need to make a guide, or we need to like have an association where we and they just start working on it.
Okay,
that's my main thing. It's less talk. It's not chit chat. It's not like, oh, how did you like the weather today? How was the party last night? Nice breakfast they have at this conference. Like I want it to be much more productive.
Okay.
And the big challenge that I've heard that I will face, and I believe it. I think that this is a big thing. Is that a lot of people get their work to pay to go to the conference. Yeah. Because they can point to a speaker and say, look, they're talking about datomic, and we're doing datomic. Yeah. So send me here and I'll learn what I need to learn.
Yeah. That's true.
So I need to come up with some other way of saying, like, you will learn something that you can sell to your boss.
Yeah. Well, maybe it could be a combination. But anyway, I mean, it sounds really nice. So I hope it solidifies, and then you get the right way to go about it.
I got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people like, oh, you're doing one? I'm going. Like, tell me when it is.
Perfect. So you already have a
good sign. That's really good. Yeah.
So
I think sometimes you start these things off relatively small. Right. If you can get like 50 people, and then sometimes these things do scale. Sometimes they don't scale. Sometimes it's actually, maybe it's a better format to just have, like you say,
smaller.
Like 20, 30, 40, 50 people maximum, and then people can work in those groups.
Just up the price of the ticket.
If you've got like 1,000 people.
And I make like a TED Talk
whatever,
style, like cost $10,000 to be in this room.
That's the way to sell it to the bosses. If you can't get this anywhere else.
Awesome.
Price people in.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I don't have any more questions or comments to make. Well, so thanks a lot for joining all the way from the US. Taking the time, and it was fun. And obviously, as I said, I would love to check out your more videos. But these days I'm a bit swamped with all the stuff. But the people who are listening to, I'm pretty sure they're familiar with your name already, because yours were one of the first courses that talked about closure and taught closure to the people.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Like, that's one of the, just a little story. Before Closure Conj, I went there too back in November. Before then, I was really gung-ho about expanding outside of closure because I felt like there's no room to grow. And when I got there, I met a ton of people who had never heard of me. And I was like, a lot of people had, of course, but a lot of people were like, no, I've never heard of that. And I work for a 40-person closure company, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on that I don't know about. And, here's my card.
That is one of the things, right? I mean, there is not enough exposure. But hopefully, I think people who are listening to this podcast, we get like 1,000 plays. Whether it's actually not 1,000 people, or maybe I don't know. So this is one way to reach out to the people, I think.
I think a lot of people are like downloading this off BitTorrent, so we don't see them. So it's probably like really there's like
piracy.
It's like, like you have like
I think there's some pirate rebroadcasts
I think there's piracy.
on like
a lot of piracy.
like
low power. It's like dark
FM.
energy in the universe. There's a lot of it out there that we just can't see. We know it's there.
Yeah.
Mathematically, we know it's there, but we just can't work it out. So that's how I'm measuring it anyway. Yeah.
There's people who are like doing text to speech on the what's that called? They do
the transcripts.
Transcripts. Thank you.
Yeah.
We haven't got one of them, but
they feed it through Siri, and they have Siri read it back to them.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Because they hate our voices, obviously. But
they can get it fast.
But it's been fun. I think we are reaching enough people, and I was actually surprised by a couple of people sending emails saying, "Hey, oh, you're the guy who's doing this podcast." I'm like, "Yes, I'm sorry." So I always start with, "I'm really sorry," and they're like, "No, it's really good." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." I'm like,
I apologize for your ears.
Exactly, I apologize for wasting 1 hour every now and then. He's like, no, it's okay. It's really good. Okay, thank you. Moving on.
Well, no, it is really good, and you're the only Clojure podcast, really, as far as I know.
Oh, that's
no, it's
maybe there is another one.
You're serving a good
specific demographics. Yes. Well, Cognitect is doing Cognicast, so I think that is not purely Clojure as far as I can tell.
No.
It's all about all other things. They even have the Elixir guy on the show. I mean, we're not gonna do that. or if we have him, we'll make him talk about Clojure.
Look,
that's pretty much it.
As far as I'm concerned, we've given enough time to PHP on this podcast for us to qualify, as polyglot programmers.
Exactly.
So I don't think we can get any complaints. We're polyglot.
Yeah,
friendly.
but we're in a committed relationship with Clojure, so yeah,
exactly.
But anyway, I think that's it from me today from Munich. So I have a busy week ahead. Anything else from you, Ray? Or the end credits? We should roll on the credits now.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I could start talking about composting.
Okay, please don't. I think we can make another podcast about composting. So for the people.
Well, I just want to say just before we go, actually, I just want to say thank you to Eric, because I think it's just very kind of you to say that we're doing something good, but I think you've been doing it for a lot longer, and I think you're very consistent, and I think Clojure owes a lot to people like you, and you in particular, to help grow the word. And I think you're right. I think Clojure is catching a bit of a fire. I think maybe this year, next year, I think we'll see more progress in this, because people are getting to the penny is dropping, I think, out there.
Yeah, it's never going to be as popular as
Java,
PHP or Java. Yeah. And I think one of the curses
it doesn't matter.
No, exactly, it doesn't matter. And another thing that I really love about Clojure is that it's having such an influence on the rest of the industry.
Exactly.
Yes.
So even if we're just there. Holding down the philosophy or whatever you want to call it that is radiating out to other languages. And I mean, Spec came out and people were writing it in JavaScript.
Yeah.
They were rewriting because they wanted it and they couldn't use it. It's cool.
Of course, as Ray was saying, I second every word he said. I mean, that you've been doing it for forever, and I'm also a subscriber of your newsletter, and I keep looking up to you, saying all these videos and everything that you made. So it is very helpful for people who want to get into Clojure, and I hope more and more people at least subscribe and then see what you're doing, the good work of spreading Clojure. So the end credits, of course, the music that you're hearing for the show is by Pizzeri, and all the technical magic is done by Mr. Wouter Dollart. Did I pronounce it correctly? Okay.
Who knows? It's okay. Not bad.
He will patch it up.
In post.
Exactly, in post-production.
Change his name.
So it's going to be like the post-production is done by Walter. The next...
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. And that's it from us today. And hope you have a nice week ahead.
Awesome.
You're halfway there, VJ. It'll be perfect by episode 40.